for this scenario, let's imagine that we got a call and the user Jimmy, who's supposed to have administrative rights in all of vSphere, is not having success. So we ask some questions about Jimmy, and here's what we discover. Jimmy is a user inside of Active Directory, and inside of Active Directory, the Jimmy user object is part of a group called Domain Admins. And the Domain Admins group in Active Directory has been given King Kong rights globally in vSphere. So we could ask ourselves, okay, what are some of the things that could go wrong? Well, the integration between the vCenter server appliance and Active Directory, that could have failed, and then no one from Active Directory could authenticate. Or maybe inside of Active Directory, Jimmy isn't in the correct group. Or maybe the Domain Admins group isn't correctly associated with the permissions in vSphere that it needs to be. So those are all possibilities regarding why Jimmy, the new user, isn't getting the access that he needs. So what I recommend that we do in the lab is let's log on as Jimmy at nuggetlab.com, see what he would see as a user, because maybe Jimmy can't even authenticate, which is the problem, or perhaps he can authenticate, but he doesn't have the permissions he needs inside of vSphere. So let's log on as Jimmy at nuggetlab.com, take a look at the results, and then we'll troubleshoot from there. So here in the vSphere web client, we'll log on as Jimmy at nuggetlab.com, and we'll tab down, and then we'll use the lab password to log on, or attempt to log on at least, as Jimmy, and we'll click Login. Well, this is a good first step. So we're logged on to the vSphere web client. We're logged on as Jimmy at nuggetlab.com. As a result of Jimmy being a fresh logon, we have the default layout. So we can minimize the recent tasks, minimize the alarms, and minimize work in progress as well. And if we don't want these getting started tabs on many of our panes here, we can click on Help, and from the drop down we can select Hide All Getting Started Pages. All right, so it looks like Jimmy can log in. If we go, I was going to say if we expand the USA, but it's currently expanded. So what we cannot see is we cannot see the Las Vegas data center. We can't see the cluster 1, cluster 2, or anything. So with USA selected, the folder, let's click on the Permissions tab. And right here, we have the administrators group at vsphere.local that has global permissions as administrator. And let's just verify that our Domain Admins group is nested inside that administrators group. So to do that, let's hover over the home icon. And from the drop down, let's go straight to Administration. Under Single Sign-On, we'll click on Users and Groups here on the left. We'll go ahead and click on the Groups tab. So here's the administrators group. And sure enough, our Domain Admins group from nuggetlab.com is a member of that group. So the question is, if Jimmy is a member of the Domain Admins group in Active Directory, and Domain Admins is a member of the vsphere.local administrators group, which has the administrator role assigned globally, why can't Jimmy access anything below the USA folder? And one possibility is that Jimmy has been assigned more explicit rights at a lower level. For example, no access would definitely do it, which would cause everything at that level and below on behalf of Jimmy to not even show up because he doesn't have the rights. So let's log out as Jimmy. So we'll click on Jimmy's name. From the drop down, we'll click Logout. And let's log on as administrator at nuggetlab.com. We'll tab down, we'll put in our lab password, and we'll click Login. Okay, so logged on as administrator at nuggetlab.com, we can see everything here in our tree inside of vCenter. And Jimmy could only see USA, but nothing below that. So what we could do is we could take a look at the Las Vegas data center, which Jimmy did not have any access to. And with that selected, we can click on the Permissions tab. And sure enough, right here, Jimmy at nuggetlab.com has been assigned the role of no access at the Las Vegas data center object and its children. And that's the reason that Jimmy could see nothing below the USA folder, because of this permission that was more explicitly assigned right here. So if Jimmy is supposed to have full access to everything, we can simply remove this explicit right by selecting it and then clicking on the X to remove the permission, clicking on Yes to confirm. We'd also want to log on as Jimmy and verify that it works. So we'll go ahead and click on the administrator at nuggetlab.com. From the drop down, we'll click on Log Out. We'll then go ahead and log in as Jimmy at nuggetlab.com. We'll supply the lab password and click Log In. Hopefully this time with better results. So now logged on as Jimmy, if we expand the USA folder, there's the Las Vegas data center. If we expand that, we have cluster 1 and cluster 2, and that looks a lot better. So in this lab, we have the hands-on opportunity to practice working with permissions and also troubleshooting why an individual might not have the permissions that we're expecting. And in this case, it was because of a more specific permissions assignment at a lower level in the hierarchy. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.